Started. As always, we will be keeping the minutes in the Zoom window. So please, if you already done add here, do it again. I can only capture it, or the chat is only saved after I start the recording. So if you already did an add here, it wasn't registered. So thank you very much. All right. Getting right to the agenda. And if you don't know what the add here is about, because you haven't been to the meeting before, it's just a way we keep attendance throughout the meeting. There'll be at items, at topics, commands in the chat window. Feel free to add items as we go through the meeting, and those items will be captured in the meeting minutes, as well as attendance if you do an add here. All right, jumping right in. The minutes from last week's meeting are available on the web as the agenda indicates. Action items from those minutes. There were, really was, come on. I do hate the fact Zoom hides my top bar there. So from the last week's minutes, we had one action item, which Kailash was to review the test case spreadsheet, recommend others what tests they could look at if they want to chip in. I don't know if he is on today or if he had an opportunity to do that or not.
Yeah, hey David. Yes, I did take a look at reviewed the test case spreadsheet and all that. I haven't gotten into implementing any of the additional test cases. We're still trying to iron out some of the intermittent failures between authentication consistently happening. Once we iron that out, I'm going to start implementing the rest of the conditions on the test case, where we're going to start bringing up and down components and containers and validating the stability. So it's coming along, but yeah, everything there looks good. I'm not sure if anyone else got a chance to review the test case spreadsheet or add any comments on it, but I'll stay on top of that.
All right, thank you. Let me just catch up with the notes. Off issues, be consistent. All right, great. Moving on to the tech profile status. There is been some work on the tech profile and the very large patch sets going on. Looking for some feedback on how that is going. Are people who has tested the patch or the patches, and if there's been at least, well, more than one person that's been successful, both on BBSim and or hardware around those patches. Matt, I know you were doing some testing on hardware. I don't know about other people doing testing on hardware BBSim, so any feedback on those patches so far?
Yeah, I've done it on hardware. I had to, well, after the two Voltago and the OpenOLT changes were merged, I had to tweak some of the SATA settings just to make sure it worked right with BAL. And I'm having issues with the OLT app in ONOS not adding the first ePOL flow. But getting past that, I've had a reasonable amount of success. I'd say 1 out of 4 times I have an issue with BAL where subscriber flows don't get pushed right, but I have passed traffic with these patches. Functionally, they do work. So there's just some timing issue maybe with interacting with the Broadcom or the agent. I do have a patch set out for BBSim as well that will work with Tech Profile insofar that it implements the Proto's RPCs. I have tested that as well with these patches, and it works as well as it always has. It will AAA auth and DHCP succeed.
Okay. Anybody else have been working with these patches or have some feedback from testing out? Okay. So,
David?
Yes.
A quick question for Matt. I kind of didn't understand the update. You said it works, but it also you said that sometimes ONOS doesn't add flows. The very first EFO flow.
So two issues. One is the bowel timing issue, which is completely separate from the ONOS app. That one I still need some more investigation. I'm not sure why that's happening. The ONOS app one was needed for me to be able to use anything at all. The issue was for either one or multiple unis discovered, the first time the EPO flow is pushed, it tries to create the meter because it doesn't exist at that first moment in time. It creates the meter, but it never turns around and actually adds that EPO flow. For subsequent unis, because the meter is then there, it adds the EPO flow. The net result is for my first uni, I don't have an EPO flow. I'm curious how it could have worked. The caveat being is I'm somewhat new to asynchronous Java, so there may be just something there I'm not seeing. But I had a change to the OLT app, just describing what I had to do to make it work. And really, it's just calling the callback to finish adding the EPOL flow.
That's surprising, because that callback has always been there from the acceptance of the meter indicated by Volta, and that acceptance then triggers the meter, the EPOL flow addition. So
yeah.
I'll have to look at your patch to AAA to understand what's going on.
It's a one-liner. I was going to run 1.7 and just kind of confirm what the expected behavior is, just as something to compare it against.
And you're using the released version of the AAA app for Volta 1.7, right? Okay.
Yep, I started with that tag and then, started with that as that version of the app. And then when I made the change, I started from that tag.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
So two issues. One is the bowel thing. One is the ONOS app thing.
Okay. As I didn't hear from anyone else, first of all, thank you, Matt, for getting all that testing done. I would like to encourage people to start testing Tech Profile, even just being able to repeat Matt's success with a BB-Sim if you don't have hardware, so that we get kind of multiple eyes proving it works. If someone else has hardware and is able to test the hardware with the Tech Profile, that help would be appreciated too. I don't know if Owen Labs.
ONF does intend to test it this week. Our physical pods are in a little bit of a disarray.
Okay.
So we are redoing all our physical pods to deal with multiple things that are going on right now. And so we expect to have something functional this week. So, or at least the pods will come up this week. So towards the end of the week, I think there is a better chance we'll be able to try Volta 2.0 and with the Tech Profile changes.
Okay, thank you. And again,
while they're in patch form, there's a bit of a sequence it takes to get them all in, a combination of some dep ensure updates and a combination of, cherry picking. Given the separate repos and the vendor dependencies, if there's still patch sets when you try, there's a bit of a sequencing that has to kind of be done to get them in right.
Is that documented anywhere, or is it just good luck?
Well, it was good luck for me, but documented in my head.
So given that you think it's working, modulo your edits to those two parts, why not just merge it, and the stabilization brigade will take care of any issues we have going forward, right? So,
I think that leads into our second agenda item. Right?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I think that leads into both 2A as well as 3. Before we merge, I think we need a second proof that someone else has done it, to be honest. Part of the stabilization brigade is to get things stable and keep them stable. So I'd at least like to have multiple eyes on the BB-Sim with TP working. Second of all, I would like to see better than 1 out of 4, or at least understand maybe a little more in depth why it's only 1 out of 4. I think before the merge, I don't want to.
well, I mean, there's of course issues that existed before this patch came in. For example, as Kailash was pointing out, the simple fact of doing packet ins and packet outs consistently, we don't seem to be getting that with the tests that Kailash
Right,
and
but
Andy
adding
and others have been working with. They all have about 50% of the time it passes. So even before this patch, there's issues, right? So I don't know if having a criteria of better than 1 in 4 is going to get you anywhere right now.
It works 3 out of 4 times. I mean, these are rough.
3 out of 4.
I mean, might be splitting hairs a little bit, but I mean, yeah, I mean, maybe 2 out of 4, maybe 3 out of 4. It's a timing issue, I think, with clearing certain flows in BAL and then re-adding them again on subscriber. I haven't had time to dig into it, but I can, I have the logs, and it's really just tracing through what's going on. But yeah, it's kind of a pain to work through unless you have the environment all patched up, ready to go.
Matt, did you say that, this is Girish here. So did you say that when you unprovision and reprovision, when you keep, iterating this process, you have some issue on the BAL?
So the issue looks like, at first, once everything's in place, ePOL works consistently single time. So getting past ePOL has never been an issue. It's the step when we go to add subscriber flows. There's a section where it looks like it tries to clear the old flows, possibly clear out any scheduler or queue settings, and then add them back in the form of the subscriber's specific settings. That sequence right there is where things, the timing seems to be off depending on when you run it or how you run it. I'm not sure what. I have the logs from a good run and a bad run, and I was going to try to figure out why sometimes it worked and why sometimes it didn't work. But it was specifically around adding subscriber flows and then the clearing of those flows just before adding them.
I could help here. I have some knowledge here. So if you can share me those logs, I can have a look at it.
Yeah, I was planning on opening JIRAs against it as bugs, assuming they were merged in. But if they're not merged in, I guess I can just create JIRAs, assuming you work with it.
I think that Jira would be good with those logs attached. I can have a look.
Okay.
Thanks. So, Saurav, back to your point. I guess my concern is, yes, there is some inconsistency and stability right now in the current code. My concern is adding in additional patch sets, adding in additional instability isn't necessarily going to bring us closer and actually starts adding more variables to the debug solution, perhaps. So I get your point. I'm just not sure I agree that adding more code right now before we get it to work is the best direction, I'll be honest. It would be nice to have pre-built images, if you will, available on Docker Hub with the various patch sets applied, but I guess I'm looking for a little more insight before it's merged. Now, again, my error of 1 out of 4 versus 3 out of 4 is significant. I definitely agree with that. I thought I heard 1 out of 4, which means if it was working 1 out of 4 times, that's really problematic. Working 3 out of 4 times may change my decision, I'll be honest. Anybody else have opinions?
I'm generally opposed to merging stuff before it's working, just because we don't want to put broken code on broken code, because like we don't know if the issue is code we already have that's causing problems or new code that's causing problems. So until we trace it, we don't want to just make the amount of code we have to look through bigger.
I guess it really gets down to, is master expected to be stable? Because that's going to slow down a lot of things getting into master. I expect a stable branch to be stable, but master, I mean, unless we do feature branches or something else, master is going to kind of be hit or miss by the very nature of it being the tip of everything.
Well, that seems to be what we've talked about, is doing, like,
Well, I think
we're doing feature branches, but they're called patch sets. Like that seems to have been the decision.
The idea was going forward is to have a higher bar as before patch sets get put into master, not only just for the stabilization brigade, but kind of post stabilization brigade, so that we don't 6 months down the road kind of run into this same situation where Volta is once again unstable and we have to go off and refocus on stabilization. So my understanding is, yeah, we're trying to keep master stable to some extent. I mean, it's never going to be bug free, but
David, the whole philosophy of having a branching out for stability brigade was that master is available for new features to come in, and yeah, okay, maybe we can put a higher bar for features to come into master, but we still need a place for features to come in. So the whole point of the stabilization brigade branching off was that it's the branch where we put real control, and the branch where we fix bugs, the branch, I mean, current code, even without the big Radisys patch, already has issues, okay? You're not adding to more issues. You may be adding to more issues, but the point is, the sooner you branch off, the sooner there's no new stuff coming in. You're right now stalling other things to come into master. So if you branch out, then at least you have something where no new stuff is coming in, no new features are coming in, and then you can work through the bugs while not stalling anyone for new features.
so the only
Right now you're stalling master. Right now you're stalling master, right? So it doesn't seem to be like the philosophy we came up with or the strategy we came up with earlier.
So right now we are stalling master. There was the multiple TCONT work that we've requested be put off being checked into master until we branch for stabilization. I assume that's what you're referencing. And the question is, in my mind still, though, well, there's two questions. One, we have existing instability issues pre-TP patch that we're talking about around testing. Is it worth it to get those to a more stable place before we merge in this? Second is the TP patch, has it hit the bar of stability that we want to put, that higher bar that we want to put on features before they're merged in?
But what is that higher bar? Even without the TP patch, we have 50% of the test passing. 50% of the times when the automated test passes.
So back to the point Kent made, if we have 50% passage now, is adding more code that's unstable going to make that better or worse? My instinct would say, well, that's going to make it worse.
The thing is, then you'll have some people having to test what is there right now with completely different ONOS app versions, and then the TP patch with another set of ONOS app versions. So
yep,
if you do it on the TP, if you just settle on the TP and fix everything on the TP versions, then at least you have one set of charts that to work with, right? Everything is fixed. And then you can work through that.
I think from a developer perspective, this patch has been around like a few weeks, so there has been a lot of churns, there's a lot of rebase, there's been a lot of developer testing that they have been doing over time. I think it's given that like 3/4 of the tests are passing, and the failure doesn't seem to be related to this patch. And given that we will need to have a TP going forward, I think it makes sense to just merge it and just start to use it. Yes, it may introduce new bugs, but this is a feature that we need in any case. And it's passing 3/4 of the time overall test, and it's not even hitting this patch at all.
So I'm gonna go back to the original question. I don't know, the original question. One of the questions I asked then: has anybody other than Matt ran all these patch sets against BBSim?
Well, I'm assuming Radisys has tried it on hardware. I don't know if they've tried it on BBSim.
It won't run with BBSim as it is today. The protos don't match and the RPCs aren't there, so it won't get past activation with BBSim as it is today, which is why I had to patch BBSim.
Right, and that's why you have a patch set out to BBSim.
Yeah, so if you use the BBSim patch, then you could try it. That works every time for what it's worth.
But again, great. Has anybody other than Matt done that?
This is Girish here. I'm not directly working on the TP patch for OpenOLT Go version, but I think Radisys has not tested with BBSim. They have tested it only on the hardware.
Has Radisys tested all the TP patches against the Go adapter and 2.0 against hardware?
Yes, we did.
Okay. And how?
But I didn't hear about the issue that Matt was talking about. But I can, talk to them if they have ever encountered such a problem.
Okay.
But it would still be interesting to have a look at the log that Matt has.
Yep.
But I'll get back on this. I'll talk to the developers who have been working on this.
Okay, thank you.
And
then
Girish,
the other,
sorry.
It's just me too. This is the one thing, given I'm the only one to run it, I had to kind of back my way into what the right bandwidth profile settings were and stumbled along the way. So, again, basing it all off one person, might just be me.
good old pilot error.
Could be.
Yeah.
So with this patch, what else do we need to be merged? This patch, BBSim patch, OpenOLT patch, and what else?
I have a list. The three big ones are the VoltaGo TP patch, the OpenOLT adapter TP patch, Volta Ono switch. If you're using Compose, I'll update it to use the newer version of the apps, and then BBSim, like you said, to the TP.
And Matt, so there is another a decent sized patch for the events framework. Does the Brigade plan on taking that as well? Because
so
that's
this is kind of the whole point of stalling master, right? We've kind of like left off rearranging the events framework until after we know we're going to cut what we have now as 201, and then all of a sudden redoing all of events can get in, TP can get in, all these other ones can get in. But right now, I'm kind of, at least from my point of view, I've been sitting on the events one just because do we want that one to get in sooner than TP and introduce a relatively big change now, or do we want it to wait till after TP? But yeah, I mean, once TP goes in, then I think the events one can go in too. But they all need to kind of go in under a 2.1. It's a big change has happened here.
Matt, just out of curiosity, for your testing, have you run this on a Kubernetes cluster or just on the Docker Compose?
Just on the Docker Compose.
And that's both for hardware and for BBSIM?
Correct.
So again, I'm back to some of my original concerns is I think before this is merged, a little more testing needs to be done. If BBSIM's working with Docker Compose, it will likely work with under a Kubernetes cluster with the affinity router, but it hasn't been tested. I think we need that test before we can feel a little more comfortable about BBSIM. Similar with the hardware test, we've got components that are part of the solution that haven't been tested with TP.
So this is Scott. I think I have the cycles this morning. I could work with Matt on reproducing his configuration with BBSIM, with Kubernetes under Volta-kind, just like we did a few weeks ago when we got it all working. I could make that my project for the morning, I think. And I think I agree with you, David. It'd be nice if one person other than Matt had reproduced this success before merge.
Matt, are you able to, you've built the images, are you able to push those images up to Docker Hub under a private repo or whatever, so that others could then test? That way they don't have to work, other people don't have to worry about applying the patch sets. They just have to essentially use the images.
Yeah, I can do that. I can set that up.
Okay.
And I'm available to do that too. So yeah, as soon as we're done with meetings, we can start on it.
Okay.
Yeah, and then if we've got a list of whatever ONOS versions and whatever SADIS config or anything that might differ from before, it'd be nice to get all that written down. I assume the ONOS versions are all the most recent ones.
Whatever was Viva 2.0, Volta 1.7, plus a one-line patch on the OLT app. That's kind of where our confusion is around. But yeah, everything else is pretty much as you would expect with, I'm assuming, as with a 1.7. I kind of had to piece together the SADIS config to make sure it was right. But yeah, having more eyes on it certainly is a good thing.
Did the SADIS config differ from the examples that we have on the release on the guide.opencode.org?
If they do, was only to lower them or make them more round numbers, so it was kind of easier for me to trace through into BAL what was being set where. I did have a bits versus kilobits error for a while that I realized, so that cleared up one thing. But yeah, I think double checking everyone's SADIS config all around might be good because that may clear all of this up.
Okay. The ones that we have on our documentation work for us every time, at least in the SIBA release.
Is this on the wiki
this
on the guide?
Is on the guide.
All right,
Guide.op. I mean, somebody can post a link on the chat if that helps. I'm on my phone, so I can't do it. I'll be curious to know if there is any differences from the ones from the one that's in the documentation.
Yeah, I'll find it either way. But yeah, we'll definitely reconcile that if that's off.
I guess kind of to David's point, just a little bit coming back, and it sounds like Matt and Scott are getting together to do some extra testing, but it was part of the idea is that more people are going to, I mean, I think that's kind of David's queasiness about some of this is we need more people doing more of this testing. Do we need the ability to have on a check-in form somewhere, this was tested on BBSIM, this was tested in the cluster, this was tested with Docker Compose or what? I mean, do we need some more statistics on where this has all been tested instead of here's a patch set, we've code reviewed it and we think it's good? I mean, I guess getting the testing, getting some of that firmed up before things go in, I guess is, and David can talk for himself, but I guess that's a little bit of David's concern. And
No, that's fair. I
Is
mean,
there a way we can formalize that?
well, actually, the real way to do it is to have automated tests, and we are getting there. But before we have those automated tests for this, what David is pointing out is fine. It's just that ONF doesn't have the hardware pods in a state right now where we can test it. But there are other people on this call, and there's 26 people on this call. There are other people who have hardware. So Radis is the one that has tested it and pushed the patch. AT&T, at least Matt has tried it, and we are going to try it. But there's also Netsia on this call. There's also other folks at AT&T, right?
I think that's what David's asking for, and maybe we just need to get those folks and say, here's a patch set, please go test it or something. I mean, get some kind of formal process to get some more eyes on it and get some more testing on it. And I think that would just make David happier. I guess it should make all of us happier.
And it's all about me.
Well, no, I mean, you're raising a point, and you're raising a point, and you've raised it before, and I don't think it's a bad point. I will second the point, Mike and David. Just can we get some more formalization of, I don't know if DVL and AT&T is picking up pre-dumped. I mean, I think they're testing the patch sets after they go in, but I don't know if they're saying, oh, here's a pre-released patch set. I don't know that DVL is testing it in AT&T. I mean, Matt is testing it, but we can get some more formal. Yes, Netsia says yes, we agree with the patch set, and DVL says yes, we agree with the patch. I mean, whoever it is, in whatever environment. I mean,
so let me ask by calling out names. Unfortunately, Netsia is on the call. Maher, Sarkant, are you looking to try this out on hardware?
Yeah, I think we can do it, Sarah. If Matt can provide the images, then then we can do the test easily, I believe.
Okay, thanks. Let's see. Does Sienna have hardware?
No.
Nope.
Okay. Aishwarya, you're a different. You're at a different location from Matt. Do you have your own hardware? I think you've been trying 2.0 things, right? Aishwarya, can you hear me? You're on mute if you're talking. Okay.
Also, when you guys do this testing, if you could test with a Kubernetes deployment of the code, that would be appreciated as well.
Yeah, we do intend to do that with Kubernetes.
Yeah.
Let's see. EdgeCore, Taskin. Do you intend to try this on hardware?
I think we are going to set up a meeting with David and Krill first. I have some concerns about how we're approaching the testing. Maybe we should get together a little bit, have some discussion on like how we're going to do testing, but we do 100% intend on testing everything on hardware. We're working on setting up the meeting with David, probably today, tomorrow. We definitely have to test it on hardware. Yes.
Hi, Saurav. Hi.
Hi, Aishwarya. Hey, we can hear you now.
Hardware, so I can go through the testing.
Did you get my answers, Saurav?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
cool.
we did.
Yes, we did. Thanks.
David, please take a look at the emails between I and Chris sent. Whenever you're available, I'm available. Don't consider about what the time is. He's in Europe, obviously, but we have to have that discussion.
Okay.
But we've also met with Dutch Telecom per their request. We want to go ahead and put together hardware test labs, at least 2 of those, one in Berlin and one is probably in the US. We want to test everything on hardware in a repeatable way. Yes, let's go ahead with the discussion.
So, okay.
Go ahead, Aishwarya.
We're not able to hear you again. Nope. Seem to have some audio issues. All right. So I think the point is,
Hello?
we're hearing you now, but there's a lot of background noise.
I'm sorry.
Okay. So if we can get one or more people to repeat, and Scott said he'd do the BB-SIM test. If we could get some people to repeat the tests using hardware, then I think we can talk about, and we see successes, we can talk about merging the branch. One thing that we did talk about in the chat was to create, before we merge the patch set, create a tag so we have everything tagged to a known working good version, if you will, before the patch set is merged, just so we can move back and forth between them. And that's what item 2A is about. Does that seem reasonable? I'll give silence gives consent. Because will be tagged before TP patch set is merged. Second of all, once moving to item 3, really. The question is, when are we ready to cut the stabilization branch and essentially free master? Is it after we merge this patch set, or is there something else we are waiting for?
There is an issue with between the if router and the core. When one core is brought down and brought back up, do we need those to be fixed before we branch out? Or we want to branch out with known issues that will be fixed after, during stabilization?
I think at the time of branching, there will probably be some outstanding known issues and some outstanding unknown issues.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that should prevent us from creating the stabilization branch. That's
Yeah,
my
fair
opinion.
enough. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Any other thoughts? So again, other than TP, are we looking to have any other patch sets? Matt, you talked about an event patch set. Is that considered a new feature, and do we need that in the stabilization branch, or is that something that goes into master?
I mean, the patch set that's out there is targeted toward master. It changes as far as I can tell, I'm not as familiar with it, but it changes the alarms and KPI format to be the more general event format. So there was a proto change to go with it, and a number of other things, but it's significant enough to warrant a major release. It's not backwards compatible. So whether it goes in before or after the stabilization branch really just depends on if what that feature brings is required for the new eventing model, or if that model is what's desired in the release.
Okay. Was this one of the features that was originally targeted towards stabilization, or is this something new?
I don't know if it was targeted for stabilization. It has been kind of hanging out for a while, similar to some of the other ones. And it is just Pi Volta and the ONU adapter. There may be other changes needed to make OLT adapter and even the core match. So as to its completeness, I can't really say. But it was big enough to stop and say, well, wait, let's maybe make sure other things get done before we try to change this.
Okay.
At least in my opinion.
Okay, so based on that, I would say we don't patch it, we don't merge it before, or merge it before we branch, because the completeness is
Yeah.
the main concern.
This is Girish here. So there were some other patch sets in the common framework in the Volta core and the proto changes. So they have all been merged. What we have right now are changes on the adapters and the Pi Volta framework. So once these get merged, that would complete the event framework.
Okay, so some of the changes are already in the OLT, Golang Open OLT in the core, so this would just finish it up.
Yes.
But does it also require changes to the core, to the Golang core, not the Pi core?
Yes, the Golang core, I believe the change is already merged. The Pi core changes are yet to be merged. And the ONU adapter changes also should be merged. So I think we have a couple of patch sets that are remaining yet. Once they get merged in, that would complete the entire event framework.
Okay.
So I think, one of the things we're going to want to QA test is that events and alarms and stuff, the right ones get emitted. And if we could have the stabilization branch and master using the same format of that stuff, I think that would be advantageous to us, because it means we don't have to have an entirely different QA test implemented in master than we have in stabilization for that. So at least I feel that if this is a small bar to get this patch in, it'd be nice to get it in, if that makes sense.
Are there unit tests associated with these patch sets?
I believe, I need to check. I believe on the Voltago core, there were no unit tests added for this. But I believe they already got merged in, but it was verified on hardware.
Pi Volta the same way. Pi Volta doesn't have all the unit tests that it did from 1.x. That's still an outstanding to do to bring over a lot of those unit tests. Any volunteers?
Can we create JIRAs for those unit tests, or what things that need to be done?
I suspect there's probably one for Pi Volta. Do you remember if there was one for the OpenOMCI unit tests?
I'm not sure about OpenOMCI.
Yeah, I mean the big ones for Pi Volta was OpenOMCI. Chip had a bunch of unit tests, and I don't know if they were brought over.
I brought over some of them.
Some of them, yeah. So yeah, holistically, there's still a number of unit tests that are still outstanding to be migrated from 1.x.
Is there a way to get a listing of those unit tests that need to be migrated?
A list can be produced.
Okay. Well stated. Okay, so the question is, go ahead.
What I'll do is I'll check if there are already some existing test cases in Pi Volta for this. I'll go ahead and add them, but I believe these tests were not migrated, because otherwise the Jenkins would have failed entirely, because the entire there has been quite a lot of change. So I believe many of these test cases have not been migrated. because we did have a Jenkins +1, which I think verifies the unit test cases.
Mm-hmm. So if we want to bring this stuff in before we branch, that's fine, I think, my opinion. But I do think we need test cases around it to get it verified that it works. And I gotta admit, I'm getting a little queasy about, you know, it sounds like we're adding things without raising the bar to make sure everything's stable as it goes in. And that's kind of how we got into this bolt in the condition that's in now. And so if we don't start changing that behavior, we're not going to get better.
Let me check, but I don't have a timeline. I mean,
Yep.
I'm not sure at this point if it's a small effort or a big effort.
Yeah.
And what is the timeline that the brigade is looking to, I mean, have the stabilization branch created? Because if it's in a matter of few days, I'm not sure if we will be able to, you know, add on those test cases. So
Yeah, this is where I think if we had a list of them or JIRA, then we can at least try to put out a call for volunteers, give them something concrete to point out and say this needs to be done, which may or may not get volunteers, but could be useful. Okay.
I'll start looking at these test cases right away.
Okay.
But if we can have a timeline on when we want to have this branch created, then I think we can you know, speed up the process as required.
Yeah, I think right now the branch creation is gated by I'll call it a double test of the tech profile stuff, or both on hardware and BBSIM under K8s. So once we get 2 or more individuals or companies that have done that, then I think we can talk about merging the TP branch or patch sets. And then for the event, I think we're talking about getting some level of testing and verification, again, by multiple people or multiple entities before it's merged. And then once it's merged, I think those are the only gating factors for the stabilization branch. Is anybody got anything else? Okay, I'm going to assume that's not. Anything else then? So once those are, I'll call it double tested, double verified, if you will, then I think those can be merged and the branch can be created. All right, there's only 3 items on the agenda today. Did anybody?
So, David, one note. Are there any other patches that people intend to get in before that, or can we tag at 201? So if we'd have a stepping off point for patches on the existing branch, or do we want to just not bother with that?
Okay, that's a good question, actually. Are there any outstanding patch sets before we create 201, which is kind of the safe point before we even look at TP or eventing?
There are some patch sets that are under code review in the core. A few folks have submitted them. Those are not major patch, like they're not features, they are just like minor improvements. So those ones, do we just go ahead and merge them, or?
Yeah, those if they're reviewed, they should be merged. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a patch for core, but it's a small patch. I think it's not important.
Well, all patches are important. So if we can get those reviewed, I think, I mean, we're never gonna not have, I think, patch sets coming in. So maybe we can set a deadline of, or a target for, let's call it Wednesday high noon to create the 201 branch, which is that stepping, not branch, but tag, which is that stepping stone before we consider merging TP or event. Does anybody think they'll be able to do either a hardware or BBSIM test on TP, for example, before tomorrow noon, California time? Okay. Fair enough. So Zach, I think part of the question is it's not really important to create the 201 tag, in my opinion, until we're at a place where we're ready to merge TP. So maybe we just hold off on that tag until we've got double testing on and are ready to merge either eventing or TP, and then we do that tag right before we do that. How's that sound?
That sounds fine. It would be good to get those patches in earlier so then we can get the TP patch rebased on them. But so trying to identify those early would be ideal.
Yeah, okay.
Do we have a grasp of how many of those there are? I mean, yeah, I'd rather get sort of the incidental minor fix patches in quickly.
Maybe 4 or 5, maybe.
Okay, it would be great if we could get those in sometime today, just so that then the TP testing could be done on actual master, and we're sure that those other minor patches didn't break anything.
Well, I mean, this has always been the catch, though, is that's the answer right now in this instant. By tomorrow, I expect there may be a couple more that trickle in, right? And
well, yeah. Well, this is the question. I mean, can we say, hey, look, we're going to merge the 4 or 5 outstanding patches, and then we're kind of at a code freeze until we get tests around TP and eventing done and merged in. In other words, don't submit a patch set.
Right, or we'll sit on it. I mean, that's kind of been what we've been doing so far now is the few that are out there. I mean, to be honest, I've kind of just been sitting on expecting this big tag and merge to happen. So, yeah, I mean, if we put it out there and say Wednesday next week maybe or whenever is the line in the sand, but between now and then, anything that comes in, it's expected to kind of be held off until later.
Yeah, because I mean, otherwise we're going to be constantly rebasing these other patches, which is a pain in and of itself.
Yes, that's part of the pain in redoing these images and the testing I've done in the last week is it's about a daily rebase.
Yeah. So can we make that decision that for the minor patch sets, I'll reuse my Wednesday deadline. Wednesday noon Pacific tomorrow. If the patch set isn't merged, it will be held until we complete testing and merge the TP and event patch sets. Any disagreement on that? All right, I'm going to call that a decision then. What is tomorrow's date? I'll call that it's a Wednesday, the 14th, 8/14 at noon. PDT is a patch set, minor patch set merge deadline. All right. Any other things before we end the meeting? We got about 3 minutes left. Please, people, test the TP and eventing capabilities so we can get those merged in and create the stabilization branch. If there's no other points to be raised, I'm going to end the meeting and stop the recording. Once, twice, 3 times. All right, thank you guys.
Talk to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care.